Hello and welcome to this video. I would just like to say thank you for coming to take a look at this, and what we're going to do in this video is basically show you how we can actually use Canvas to assess our general education learning outcomes that are out there and collect these assessment results for analysis. As you can see, we'll go through a couple of different steps in this. We'll take a look at our GE program and the learning outcomes associated with it, and then we'll go through the steps on setting up the general education learning outcome, or GELO, in Canvas. And you can see there's a couple steps here, and then we will end off with looking at an actual assessment of the GELOs in Canvas using the gradebook. One of the questions that we get a lot of the time is what is the general education program? And basically, when you look at your GE program, these are really an overall set of values or abilities that your students that are graduating from Merced College should possess as a result of going through their educational experience. So some people look at it as these are abilities that students pick up in addition to the specific abilities that are associated with the degree or certificate that they are earning. And Merced College currently has 5 GELOs that are out there for what we feel that students should be able to pick up as they go through their educational journey. And you can see here that after students complete all of these courses, we feel that they should have communication skills that are appropriate to an audience, that they should be able to do some computation and also use technology. They should be able to think. They should also have an understanding of different cultures that are out there. And then the last one is that by the time they finish their educational journey at Merced College, hopefully students will have picked up some sense of personal responsibility, but also they can gather a lot of learning that could be used throughout their life. So if we look at this process and we go ahead and see about signing in to look at Canvas, go to your regular Merced College login page, and if you want to, you can log in through the faculty and staff link to find other resources that are associated with assessment. And if you remember, on this page here, we do have some of our links for the assessment overview, and there is going to be a guideline document that you can use on this page to start looking at or to get some more information about doing your GE assessments. If we go into that page, you will see that we have a lot of other information that can be used, a variety of different resources and helpful links. But we want to take a look at doing GE assessment in Canvas. So for this one, you want to go ahead and click on your Canvas link and then go ahead and log into Canvas as you normally would. And here I've just pulled up a sandbox course so that we can show you how to find the GELOs and go into that first step that we looked at before. So the first thing that we will need to do is actually add what's known as learning mastery to your Canvas course. So anywhere within your Canvas course, you will be able to pull this up by basically going all the way down to the bottom on the side there. And if we take a look at this, we can see all the way over here is the settings button. So we will go ahead and click on this. And this will pull up a lot of your information associated with this. But for now, we want to just go into our feature options menu right here. And what we want to do is come in and take a look at the second one on this, called the Learning Mastery Gradebook. And we want to make sure that we actually do set this by moving the bar to the side until it is green. So you don't want that black X marks. You do not need to turn on the Student Learning Mastery Gradebook for this process to work here. And so now we've completed our first step. Pretty easy. Now that you've added learning mastery to your Canvas course, we can move on to the second step, which is actually adding the Merced College General Education Learning Outcomes, or GELOs. So we can back out of our feature options in the settings menu, and we're going to come over here to the outcomes link over there. And there's a few things that I have in this course already, but I'll just go ahead and show you how you can get this. And we don't want to import these at this point. What we're going to use here is actually the find option, because we've got these already put in there at the administrator level, so that everybody can get access to the same outcomes, and that'll allow us to collect the data for each of the individual outcomes. So you just come in here and you click on Account Standards and then Merced College, and there you can see we've got a folder that is entitled General Education, and we've got our 5 General Education Learning Outcomes, or GELOs again, with just a short little name to identify the different ones. And all you have to do is take a look at those GELOs that are there in their description, and if you have a GE course that is already aligned with this, and you can find that in the catalog, it's already been determined that your course fits into that general education pattern. But at this point, I would not mind if people that are even outside of the GE breadth requirement, who thought I have a really good assignment that I can use to measure whether or not my students are picking up this knowledge, skills, or ability in, say, communication or cognition, then I want to be able to add those to our GE program assessment results. And to add this, you basically just come in and you would pull up your individual GELO just by clicking on it right here, and then go over here to this side where it has the little blue import button and click on that little guy right there. And so now we have imported a new one, and you can see I'll show you this process in one that does not already have it imported. So again, just go to Find and go through your 3 steps for Account Standards and Merced College. And then you can see that we've got our list of GEs right here. And you can click on whichever one you want to assess for your course. So here I'm just going to pull up the cognition one and import that into my course. And now you can see the cognition one has appeared on the side right there. If you would like to do more than one assessment of a general education learning outcome, just go ahead and don't click on Import again, click on the Find button and pull up any additional ones that you would like to do. And just go ahead and import it and click OK. The last part in setting up your GELO for use in Canvas is to basically go in and create a rubric, and to that rubric that you would use with your assignment, we're going to add our learning outcome for that GE. So in order to do this process, we're going to come over here. You can just go up to your assignments. The other place where you can do this is if you come in through your outcomes window right here. You can see there is a little button where we were previously, where you can actually come in and manage your rubrics. And so I'm just going to do it here because it'll be an easy way to do this. And we just click on Add a Rubric, and you can see that we have this little thing here that starts out with a default on some rubric. And the one thing I will point out, that if you're going to be doing this, you want to make sure that you give it some sort of unique name. Often it's good to put it in for yourself. So I could put in something like Bio 1, and then we'll call it Cognition GELO. And all that we have to do for this thing right here is we give it that unique name right there, and then you can come into your Find Outcome, and remember we pulled this up, and in this sandbox I have all of them available, so I'm just going to use that little guy right there. If you look at this rubric right here, what you can see is there's actually 2 rows that are built into the rubric. The first row is the default that was there. If you want to, you can modify this. You can also delete it if you click on this little trash can. But the thing that we just did is we added this Cognition GELO to our rubric right there, and here you can see the 3 scores that are available for this. We can score the students as they exceed expectations, they meet expectations, or they did not meet your expectations. So it's pretty easy to generate that, and for this one I'm going to get rid of our description of criteria. So here we're just looking at a rubric that would be used for basically grading an assignment to assess how your students did at this Cognition GE outcome, and then click on Create that rubric to keep it right there. So now that you've gone through the steps to set up your GELO in Canvas, we want to go ahead and use that GELO in an actual example of an assessment. So we will need to link the rubric to the assignment and then use that rubric to assess the outcome for that particular assignment. So I'll show you how we go through these steps. You basically just need to go back to your assignment link over here on the side, and we can create a new assignment. And we'll just call this one Cognition. GELO assignment there. You can use that text field to put in more information, decide whether or not you want to reward points to the students that will appear in their gradebook, and go through a variety of different settings right here. What class you're in, assign it to everyone in your due date. And when you do go through this process, remember you've got a couple of options here. You can save it and modify it later on, but we're going to go ahead and just save and publish this thing right now. So it'll be available. And again, if you need to, you can always go back and unpublish it. You can set up everything and get all of your settings correct so that you can then publish it for the students to see. But notice what we have right here is our plus rubric button right there. And if you click on that, it'll just pull up your generic name, so some rubric right there. And you also get your default description of criteria row to your rubric right here. And what we want to do is we can add our outcome, and we've already got our outcomes downloaded from the GE. And so we've got that little guy right there. Click on import, and now we've got our GE outcome that's actually attached to this particular rubric right here. If you want to, you can get rid of this first line right here if you're not going to use this for grading. But if it's an assignment where you're already using a rubric to grade the student's work, you can go ahead and keep this. I should point out that if you want to, you can keep adding more criteria to this rubric right here. And so we can just add a couple of other things right here, and this could be another part of the assignment that you would grade. And so you can actually set this up so you've got multiple different criteria that you're grading. So if you did something where you're looking at, say, an introduction, you could give points for that and grade how the students did there. And then maybe a conclusion, you can do a separate set of points for that assignment. And if you've got more than one criteria for those individual ones, we can edit this little thing right here and update your ratings. And you can see for this particular criteria right here, I've got 3 different point values that I can use for this assignment. And again, if you need to, you can always come in here and edit this by clicking on your little pencil icon. You can delete this if you want to, and get rid of it just by clicking on your trash can right there. So when you're complete with all that stuff, you can go ahead and complete your rubric right there. Notice you still have access to editing it with your pencil. You can delete the rubric if you're not happy with what you have, and you can also find another rubric. And I'll pull this up just so you can see this is actually linked to all of your different classes that are out there. And so you can pull up different classes from previous semesters and take a rubric from there, and then you can modify it. Just make sure that if you are going to go through this process, that you do start giving some class names to your rubric so that you know which ones they're associated with. For a GE, you could definitely go in there and just do something like this little guy where I'm doing cognition. So I can come in here and just change that to a Cognition GELO rubric and give it its own unique identifier for use later on, and then click on Update Rubric. Now that you've got this, and if you have an assignment attached to this, and I don't really have much here other than the students would be submitting a text entry box on this. I don't have any content for the assignment, but I do want to show people how you can actually use this. And now that you've created your rubric with your GELO, you would come over to your speed grader. And this is going to pull up the submissions that came from the students in your class right here. And so if we take a look at this, you can see that there is the title of my assignment. There is no due date on this one, and it also shows you which class it's associated with. And here you can see the student's name. In this case, my student is John Stalker. And so you could take a look at their assignment, and their submissions would appear over here in this window. And then if you click on View Rubric, and in this case I'm just going to move this little bar over to the side so that I can see the complete one, there's the rubric that you just set up. And you can see it's an active rubric now. There is my first row with my criteria, and here you can see full marks or no marks, and over here we can see there is my cognition GELO, and I've got my 3 categories. And notice when you look at this, you cannot modify this when you're in that rubric window, because we want everybody to be using the same type of criteria. But you would look at your student submission over here in this left panel, and then come over here and click on this little thing, and you can see the box, when you hover over it, it changes color right there. And that's all that you really need to do. And in this case, we can see the student got full marks for this first criteria right here. And when we look at the cognition, you can see that they did not meet expectations. So you can see that nice little color change that lets you know how you did right there. If you want to, you can provide individual feedback to the students for each criteria. And that's this little bubble underneath there. So you can do that for each individual criteria. And also, if you want to provide an overall set of comments, you can do that in this bottom window. For these guys, you want to make sure that you click on the Save button to save your comments associated with that particular rubric. And if you have additional comments down here, you want to make sure that you click on the Submit button there. And so there you can see I just clicked on the save, but it did not save this extra stuff. And if you look at this and you're like, oh, I made a mistake, you just come in here, click on your rubric, and come in and make your changes right there and click on save. And you can see it was red before and now it's green. If I wanted to and I had these additional comments, I would want to make sure that I click on those little guys there. And then you just come in here and you can use that arrow button to go to the next student. Sorry, this class does not have more than one student, just John Stalker is right there. You can also pull up your list of students in alphabetical order using this window and go from one student to the next, or just grade through your whole class by using your little arrow key right there. And if you look right there, you can see the number that have been graded, and it would also tell you, give you an indication of the number of the assignments that have not been graded. The last thing I want to show you is associated with the rubric here and the point values that are associated with it. And so if we go back to the assignment just by clicking on that button, it takes us back to the assignment window. You can also get there by clicking on the assignments over here on the side. And if you take a look at this, you can see that each of the criteria that's listed in the rubric has point value associated with it. So 5 points for the first one, 5 points for the second, and then our total points. And if you want to remove the points from that, you can just come in here, click on that little pencil icon, and you can see that there's a couple of options down here. And if we look at this thing, we can remove points from the rubric, and you can see there are no points associated with that. We can also use this rubric for assignment grading right here. And this will change it so that when it appears in your grade book and you use the rubric, the actual point value that's assigned by the rubric will automatically get transferred into your speed grader assignment. And so if we click on our speed grader and come over here and look at this thing, I'm going to view the rubric again there and click on that one, and click on. And so once you go through this process, you should see the final points that appear in this little box. And this is what's going to get transferred over to your grade book. And so if we take a look at this, you can see there's my list of assignments, and you can see that it's recorded some of these for other demonstrations that I put up, but then that score should automatically get transferred into the grade book for the student. And the final thing to consider here is by doing this process, we're going to be able to collect data from more than a limited set of classes, and our hope is to increase the numbers, because the larger sample size that we can get, the more we'll be able to analyze the data there and really take a look at whether or not the students are picking up these knowledge, skills, and abilities associated with the different outcomes for things like communication and cognition and whatnot. And if we notice there is a discrepancy, or maybe one of those outcomes has a lower level of students meeting or exceeding that outcome, then we'll be able to sort of focus our efforts in the future and see what we can do to bump that up. Because again, if you go back to that original thing and you think about it, when we're looking at our general education program, this is something that we're saying these are the skills that students should pick up as part of their journey through Merced College. Thank you.